What is up, people of the internet? It is me, Real American Politics, and today we're going to be talking about one of the bigger long shots of the 2022 gubernatorial elections, which is a potential flip of the great state of Oregon. Now, this is a weird state. Before we get into it, this state, when you look at the demographics, when you look at, the type of industries that are there, like lumber, it's a very white state, you would think this state should be safe Republican by a mile. The demographics line up, the type of jobs that are there. I mean, it's a very white working class state, a lot of blue collar people that live there. But this state has been dominated by the far left Antifa crowd. And if you don't know who Antifa is, put it simply, it's communists. It's communists or anarchists, whatever you want to call them. They hate America, and for some reason, they have so much power in Oregon, and especially in Portland. They control Portland. And it's kind of sad what happened to that state. That state was a beautiful state just 10 years ago. It's gone down the tubes. But I do believe that this cycle could be the year finally the voters in Oregon, especially white working class voters, finally abandon the Democrats and finally vote against the same party that has constantly screwed them over the past 20 years. Instead, vote for a good Republican who I have one in mind that I do believe will get the nomination. Now, before we start with that, I hope you enjoy these type of videos. If you do, smash the like down below, subscribe, share with a friend, hit the little bell, and yes. Let's try to get 177 likes on this video. That'd be greatly appreciated, and yes. So before we talk about the race itself, I want to give you my reason why I believe that this race will be close. And put it simply, look at past results. 2018, Kate Brown, one of the worst governors in America, only won the state by around 6 points. 6.5 points. In a wave year, alright, a blue wave year, the Democrats won nationwide by, I believe, like 7 or 8, if I remember correctly. If you go to 2016, she won by around 7.1%. So the state actually swung a half point more Republican in the gubernatorial race, even with a generic ballot getting like 10 points more Democrat. That is unusual, especially for Oregon, which, yes, it tends to be close in midterm years, Back in 2014, Republicans lost by 5.5. In 2010, they lost by around 1.5. You keep going back, etc. But this was an unusual result. What happened from 2016 to 2018, because 2016, they won by a wider margin than they did in 2018. That's very rare in Oregon. You look at their history, they tend to actually swing like the nation does. Not this time. They actually swung Republican. They tend to swing Democrat. Swing Democrat when the nation swings Democrat. But they didn't. They swung Republican. And I do have a few theories for this. My number one theory is I do believe the Antifa stuff in Oregon, you look at it, I truly think it's very unpopular. I truly think the Antifa stuff, which is like 1% of the population, that they control state politics for God knows what reason. I actually think that they're not well liked in Oregon. But the issue is that the Antifa crowd was able to play some bullshit narrative the past couple of years saying, we're actually peaceful, we're fighting against this, this, and this. Well, the past, 3 years or so, the Antifa crowd essentially got exposed hard as organized, as literal terrorist groups. That's what they are. Antifa is one big terrorist organization. They should classify it as it. It's ridiculous that they aren't. And I was thinking, 2020, without COVID, I wondered how much did COVID affect Oregon, because Oregon actually swung, I think, like 4 or 5 points Democrat from 2016 to 2020. And I wondered, how much was because of COVID? Well, this tells me everything. So, again, exit polls are not everything. But when you have 99% of people that said COVID was the biggest issue in Oregon said they voted for Biden, that should tell you everything about the state. What happened was that people were so just completely scared of COVID that they voted so heavy for Biden that they were like, fuck it. And plus, I do think that the riots in the summer, they blame Trump. And this is a theory I've been saying for a while, that the riots in the summer, Trump's response to them was pathetic. I hate to say this, it was pathetic. Outside of Kenosha, it was terribly done. And that's why I think he suffered the most in Oregon, especially the Portland suburbs. Because people were wanting somebody to help them. Like, hey, we need some help here. Instead, Trump basically did nothing. It was disastrous what happened. And I do think they're also going to blame the governor, Kate Brown. And I do think, because she's not running again, I think she got term limited, that the Republicans have a good opportunity here. I do believe that the riots of 2020, even 2021, there's some riots in Portland. I mean, I even think now there's still shit going down in Portland. It's absurd, and I do think they're going to punish their statewide officials hard. I mean, when you have some of these Democrats saying, "Oh, it's just a peaceful, brotherly, summerly love," what do you want to call it? I forgot what they said exactly. They called it peaceful. They called it just a lovely place. I think they're going to absolutely just demolish the Democrats in the polls. I do think this is going to kill them. And we saw this a little bit in some 2021 races for mayor elections, especially in Buffalo. The mayor election, I mean, the progressive that was essentially a Marxist, what she was, she lost to a write-in campaign by the popular mayor. That's what we're dealing with here. And I do believe that Democrats who do not, essentially say, no, we're against what happened in summer 2020, they're going to get demolished. And, yeah, Oregon is a weird state, but I do believe COVID and the riots influence the results way too much. I mean, when half of the electorate says it's either COVID or policing issues, yeah, you're probably not going to win. But if it was the economy, Trump annihilated Biden, even in Oregon. So that's why I'm saying that I do believe the Republicans have a chance. And also, there's one more X factor. There's really three main candidates this race. One for the Democrats, one for the Republicans, and a third one, an independent. And this is the biggest reason I think Republicans could pull this off. Now, before we get into the independent, who I think is actually kind of good on some issues, let's look at the Republican I fully endorse, Bud Pierce. He is a solid, very good Republican. I mean, look at these issues. His healthcare platform, beautifully put. Homelessness, cost of living, the economy. I recommend you go look up Bud Pierce. He's a very good Republican. He ran in 2016. And he's a good Republican on the issues. Considering this is Oregon, this is really good. This is a very good platform for Oregon standards. Now, for the Democrats, they're essentially running a Bernie bro, LGBT person, and just... it's essentially a progressive that's nuts. That's who they're running. She's the main frontrunner. Everybody's endorsing her. But there's one more candidate I have not mentioned. Betsy Johnson. And she's a unique Democrat. She was a former Democrat, but actually was raised in a moderate Republican family. But then, she became independent. She's running as a third-party candidate this election. And usually I ignore these candidates because usually they're going to get, 0.5%? She is actually getting significant buzz. Look at the amount of endorsements she is receiving. These are not some no-name people. These are legitimate government officials, former state legislators, former statewide officials. I mean, the Oregon Secretary of State from 2019 to 2021 endorsed her. She's getting huge endorsements for the state of Oregon. And, well, put it simply, she's going to take votes from both parties. But she's going to run heavily on pro-choice. I know that for a fact. She's already been doing that. And that's going to energize the Democrat voters to vote for her more than Republican voters. I mean, she had some good voting record when it came to certain issues like energy and the environment. And even guns. She was actually pretty good at guns. So go look up her her voting record. So this is why I think Republicans can pull this off. You have a third-party candidate that's going to siphon significant support from a progressive, quote-unquote progressive, who's, by the way, extremely far-left Democrat, with a moderate, center-left to left-wing independent. So that's why I believe Republicans can pull this off. And plus, here we got this. Again, exit poll data, not significantly good. Only 48% of white voters, no degree, voted for Trump. And if we see what happened in New Jersey, Virginia, with white working class voters in Oregon, that alone would be just enough to get Republicans over the edge. So this is why I believe Republicans are going to pull this off. They have everything going for them. A good Republican candidate who already ran in 2016, lost, but did substantially better than Trump. You have a third-party candidate who's actually a major one that's going to screw over Democrats. And the issues that matter to voters significantly favor Republican candidates. And one more thing, the demographics. I mean, Republicans, if they're going to get at least 58%, all right? 58%, that's their bare minimum they got to get. And I think they're going to easily get that. I think 60% is what they're going to get. Of the white voters with no degree, or the white working class voters of Oregon, who are 58% of the electorate. Yeah, this sounds like a safe Democrat state to me. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, smash the like button down below, subscribe, share with your friends, hit the little bell, and yes, thank you guys for watching, and we'll see you guys in the next video. Godspeed to everybody.